When did your gut feeling of something's not right here save you? Some dude get off the bus at the same stop as me. It's about 8 p.m. in October, so it's quite dark out already. He had spoken to me on the bus, one line about nice weather. Anyway, he gets off the bus after me. I cross the road and make a mental note of him walking the opposite way to me. I make sure to watch him walking away. Something in my gut says not to trust him. To get to my house, I have to walk up a hill with a path alongside a high stone wall. It is secluded. Usually I listen to music as I walk. I decide not to this time. I'm about halfway up when I get this awful feeling. I take out my phone, dial my mother's number, and as I do I hear fast steps of someone running up behind me. I know it's the guy before I turn around, and as I do, he is literally running full speed towards me. I look him dead in the eyes, ready to fight for my life. As I do this, my mother answers her phone and I say, "Hi, Mom." He slows right down to a light jog and says, "Evening," as he jogs past me. I ask my mom to stay on the line. Her BF comes out to meet me at the top of the hill. The guy's nowhere to be seen. He was definitely running up behind me to strike me, and by turning to face him, I'm certain it threw him off. I'm a firefighter. We got called out to a tree fire started by fallen power lines. We pull up in the truck and I'm trusting that my driver and crew leader are doing their job and have good situational awareness. We get out of the truck and we've parked next to a set of power lines. Not fallen. It's a very windy night and I can see the lines swinging, so I voice my concerns to my crew leader who says it'll be fine. We get out, hose out. Risk of the tree fire catching onto a house outweighing potential risk of arcing plus the line disconnected when it fell. And I'm on the branch ready to start putting it out with two others near me when I get a chill. I look up and see the lines swinging violently and yell, "Everyone fucking move!" As the three of us sprint and dive out of the way, we hear a thwip and crack. And sure enough, the line we were under came loose and stayed connected to the power pole. If I hadn't got that chill, chances are we would have had 3 fried fireys. Well, I was walking home. Wasn't late, and I'm from a pretty safe area, but it was that time of year when it starts to get dark really early, so felt kind of ominous. Anyway, I passed this guy in a red sweater and red tracksuit bottoms, and he looks at me funny. Maybe he's high, maybe he's drunk. Either way, something not quite right about him. I keep going. Look behind me, he's still there. Cross the road! He crosses with me. As soon as I turn a corner, I sprint to my apartment complex and run into the coded gate and wait. He rocks up a minute later and stares at me through the gate. He just stares at me for a good 10 or so seconds, then runs back the way he came. I woke up at 3 a.m. once sitting upright in bed. I felt on alert, and my heart raced when I saw that my cat was on alert too, wide awake by my feet with his ears perked up. But I didn't see or hear anything weird. Something didn't feel right, and I couldn't relax. So I got up and went to the kitchen. Turned on some lights and ate food even though I wasn't that hungry. Eventually went back to bed. We discovered the next morning that someone had stopped while in the process of using some kind of tool to silently cut a big hole in the glass window in the living room. They were trying to break in, right next to the bedroom. I think the lights I turned on scared them away. Edited to add that we had 3 long years of issues with our neighbors. They repeatedly came into our property and were pissed that we put up a 9-foot fence to keep them out. This attempted break-in happened right after the fence went up, and 2 days before they all moved out. Glad those pieces of shit are long gone. Your cat probably woke you up. The glass cutters are silent to us, but not to them. And I've woken out of a dead sleep. I sleep like a rock, because my cat was suddenly on edge. In her case, 'twas just a mouse. But hey, that's exactly what I think too. And he doesn't go on alert like that over a squirrel, or loud cars, or neighbors talking next door. He heard something, and was smart enough to know it was alarming. I smoke weed. One day I text my dealer. He takes a while to respond, but eventually replies with, "Shit's hot right now, bro, but you can drop by real quick." I also ask for a half ounce, which is big jail time for possession where I live. So I'm driving to his house and am about 10 minutes away when I suddenly just feel so nauseous and uneasy for some reason. I think about what he said and ultimately decide to just go home. That night on the news, there is a report about a large meth bust that had occurred earlier in the day and that 6 people had been arrested. It was my dealer's house. I'm still grateful to this day that I decided to turn around. Otherwise, I'd be in prison. Edit. I don't smoke anymore. Had a friend who said we should go to this party he was invited to by a classmate of his. We ended driving out to it. We noticed the neighborhood was not too pleasant and sketchy. We saw that house had some lights on in backyard, but kind of quiet for a party. I decided that we should not go since something felt really off. Friend ended finding the classmate that invited him, got robbed and threatened when he went to party. It ended up being a fake party. At age 5, I was almost abducted by strangers at the park who had a bunch of toys on a blanket and tried to lure me into their motorhome. I looked back to my dad, who was talking to his friend maybe 100 yards away. I got a tummy ache when one of them tried to coax me by reaching for my arm to lead me away, and I screamed and ran like hell back to my dad. Years later, I found out those same people had abducted other kids who weren't so lucky. Never ignored a gut feeling since. Thanks for all the positive feedback, and FYI, trust me, once my dad got over the shock, he let me have it for not only wandering off, but speaking to complete strangers. I talked to my mom a bit about it today, and she told me my dad broke down and blamed himself. Positive outlook on this, though? Guys, this is just one instance, scary as it may be, where my gut led me in the right direction and my instinct for danger is now uncanny. I truly believe everything happens for a reason. I trusted my instincts and it kept me safe, still does. Was riding my motorcycle with a friend on the back. We were going down a country road behind a truck hauling a bunch of old car tires when all of a sudden I decided we shouldn't be there. So I slowed way down to let the truck go ahead of us. Just as I did, one of the tires fell off the truck and landed right where we would have been. When I was in middle school and around 14 years old, I was returning home. I lived like 5 mins away from said school, and I noticed there was a man following me. He wasn't looking at me, he was looking at his phone, and he wore a cap, so I wasn't able to see his face fully. Anyways, he gave off this weird vibe. I reached my apartment building, and the guy was still behind me. I know mostly everyone who lives in my neighborhood, and I couldn't recall him. Last moment, I decided I wasn't going to go inside the hallway. I turned around and went to a store where I waited for my mom to come. A few weeks after, there was some news about an 11-year-old girl from my school who was raped in the building right behind mine 2 days after the incident. The guy they caught looked a lot like the guy who had followed me, and given the time frame and the proximity, there's a high chance that it was him. Was at a farmer's market in downtown Chico, California with my wife. I'm tall and white, and my wife is Asian and vertically challenged. And over the crowd, I saw 2 very rough-looking gentlemen. One really tall and the other short with a swastika tattooed on his forehead like Charles Manson. Little tattooed man and I made eye contact from maybe 50 away, and he gestured to his friend, and then he pointed at me. I alerted my wife and told her that we were leaving immediately. She thought I was majorly overreacting and wanted to continue shopping, but I overruled her, and we left. Maybe 6 months later, we were watching America's Most Wanted, and guess who showed up for double murder over meth in Oroville, California? My 2 buddies. We still talk about that from time to time, and it still gives me goosebumps 15 years later. My daughter was 1.5 years at the time. She had a cold, but bedtime went off without a hitch. I woke up in the middle of the night that night, really uncomfortable and anxious. Something was off and I couldn't put my finger on it. I got up, had a midnight snack, tried to calm my nerves. I decided to check on my kids who shared a room before trying to go back to sleep. I get in there and immediately I hear a light sound coming from her crib, wheezing. It was so quiet there was no way to hear it outside of the room. I got her up and saw that her breathing was fast and labored. I took her to the hospital, where she ended up with an overnight stay, oxygen and nebulizer treatments because her oxygen had dipped. She was diagnosed with reactive airway disease due to the cold, which triggered the asthma attack. Worked as a shot girl at a pub. One night I rejected someone who attempted to get my number. Not unusual, and he didn't seem that bothered. The whole exchange wasn't strange to me. In the early hours after the bar closed, I went to leave through the back door into the car park like usual when I saw the sensor light outside was on. Someone was stood just outside the door. I felt uneasy, so went out the front and asked one of the bouncers to walk me around the back to my car. As we rounded the corner, we spotted this guy lurking outside the door holding his belt like a makeshift garrote. When he saw us, he started screaming that I was a fucking bitch and I should die. He scampered off into the road and never came back. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out the channel, there are so many cool stories. Also, share your story in the comments.
Bye.